Good morning, everybody. It is Cathy Haig here at the Magical Urban Vegetable Garden, and I hope you have your coffee ready. You're ready for a little bit of Sunday morning garden chat before you get going with your day, or maybe you're already going with your day. Whatever it is you're doing, Sundays are a day to take stock for the rest of the week, and I hope you get to do that. But today I want to talk to you about blossom end rot. It is something that is coming up a lot. Of course, it's just the time of year. Lots of people having issues with it. I see it on all kinds of conversations, and I thought, well, here's a few points that might help you out, because there's a lot of myths floating around out there, and some of them are a little bit true, some of them are kind of true or a lot true, and some of them are just, so I hope this helps. So the causes, let's start with, a couple of the causes of blossom end rot. Contrary to what a lot of people think, especially if they're starting out gardening, blossom end rot isn't a disease. It's not caused by a virus or a fungus. It's the inability to take up calcium through liquid intake. And usually there's a couple things that can do this. It can be improper fertilization, which happens sometimes if maybe you haven't amended your soil properly, or you don't have a proper tomato vegetable fertilizer. Tomatoes, incidentally, are very picky about the proportions, especially of nitrogen and such that they get, but they need other trace elements as well to do really well, which is important. Hey Chris, how are you? There's, let me see, the biggest culprit I see this time of year is fluctuations in moisture, because even a short time, even if it's just, maybe a couple of hours of not being able to properly uptake moisture, maybe things are getting a little bit dry, it's hot, it's, you're in the middle of water shortages, while the fruit is forming, can cause blossom end rot. The fruit can't form properly. And it's caused by lack of, or the calcium, inability to take up calcium. And keep in mind, calcium is a trace element. It's not like your big three, like your nitrogen and all that, where you need more of it. It's a trace element. So again, good thing news is it's not a disease. It's fairly easy to solve. You can take and use the fruit that you have. I mean, maybe it's just got a little bit of brown on the end, and you're like, do I have to throw this out? No, you can cut that part off and still use it, or you can throw them in your compost if you figure they're too far gone. It's not a disease, and you can start over, and we'll get to how and why in a minute. But some of the myths that I see floating around is throwing in, eggshells or tums or, just extra nutrients. And it's not that these things aren't necessarily good, but it's easy to overdo it, because remember, we're talking about calcium, which is a trace element, right? And if you overdo it, it can be just as bad as not having enough. So here's the thing, and I'm probably going to catch flack for this. If you have amended your soil properly, that means that you've dug in compost, you've, given it nutrients and stuff for in the spring or fall. Maybe you've added top dressing of compost as mulch. Chances are you have enough calcium. The problem is your plant's ability to be able to utilize it. So if you've already gone and thrown on tums and crushed up eggshells and whatever, stop. It's okay. It will continue to slowly release in your soil, but you've done enough in that way. The problem is fixing it so that your plants can actually have proper moisture. And during your dry spells especially, or you get real fluctuations in moisture, maybe you rely a lot on rain, a little bit of irrigation, it's super hot and dry, your plants are kind of drying out in between. You need to make sure that they stay at a more even soil temperature. And you might ask, well, how do I do that? Because, I don't have a big irrigation system, or, we're on water shortages. And the best answer I can give you guys is mulch. Mulch, mulch, mulch. Make sure that, because mulching, even if it's just with, grass clippings from your lawn, and it doesn't have to be a lot. You don't want to start off with so much that it just turns into a mushy mess. You want it to kind of dry out and form a mat around your plants. It's going to help smother weeds, but it's also going to keep that moisture in. When you water, It's going to let your plants utilize it better. It's going to keep the soil temperature more even, which is really important, like if you're in super hot, dry conditions. And it's also going to eliminate a lot of that evaporation that happens. So it's easier to water deep, which is important because it's not just around your plants that need it. Remember, the root systems go down, right? And so you every so often you're going to have to water more deeply to make sure to get those deeper root systems so that they also are getting moisture, as well as right around the base of the plant. I hope that makes sense. And, you know, of course, making sure that you have a good tomato vegetable fertilizer and you're using it adequately. I have a really good one I like from Gaia. But whatever it is that you're using, make sure that it has, you know, multiple nutrients in it, not just, you know, your top 3 macronutrients, but it has micronutrients as well. And use it according to directions, right? If it says, you know, once every 2 weeks, then do it once every 2 weeks or whatever it is for your tomato plants. Do a little research on it if you like. But the biggest thing is, you know, mulching and making sure that those watering systems are keeping your soil at a much more even moisture level. And you don't want wet tomatoes, in my experience, especially here. You can probably hear the rain. I'm in the greenhouse again today because it is pouring out there. And so they don't like super wet conditions. They like good drainage. They like their feet to be, you know, cool, a little bit cool and slightly damp. They don't like to get dry, but they don't like to be waterlogged either. And there was something else I was going to mention. Yeah, pick all the, you know, if you've got blossom end rot happening on your cucumbers or tomatoes or your squashes or whatever else is happening, can happen, all these things. This applies to all of them. You know, mulch it, make sure that they got a good, you know, that you've done all your amendments, and then, you know, keep track of your watering systems. Now, here's the thing I've also discovered with tomatoes especially. Some of the heirloom types I've discovered, particularly Roma tomatoes, are much more sensitive to getting blossom end rot and moisture fluctuations for some reason. And it took me a year or two to figure out what was going on, because my Romas were getting, they were getting all the same, they were all getting all the same watering and whatever as my other tomatoes, but the Romas were getting blossom end rot. They're right beside, same soil, same everything, but there was some of them that were getting blossom end rot. And so some of them just need a little bit more treatment, more watering. Sometimes you got to adjust it. So especially if you have a bigger garden, it's out of doors, maybe you're on a watering system and it's working fine for some and it's not working for others, you might need to adjust that. Maybe you'll have to put a second timer and system on, you know, your heirlooms or your Romas that are having issues with this. Just keep track of it for next year so you can kind of have them in their own section, and maybe you can increase or decrease that watering. Anyways, I hope that helps. Let me know in the comments below. Share this live with anyone that needs it, because of course we're trying to have everybody grow really happy, healthy, luscious gardens and food. And I hope you have an amazing Sunday. Bye for now.